All right, welcome. Today we're diving deep into some ancient wisdom, Proverbs 24 to be exact, and we're going to see if we can pull out a real practical blueprint for modern life. We're talking about envy, justice, hard work, all the big stuff to figure out the secret to building a life that actually lasts.
So let's just get right to it with a question I think we've all asked ourselves at some point, right? Why does it seem like the wicked, the people who cut corners, who act unfairly, are the ones winning? You see it all the time, and it's so frustrating. Well, that exact feeling, that tension, that's what this ancient text tackles head on.
And the answer it gives? Whoa! It doesn't mess around. The very first piece of advice is a direct command. Just stop. Stop envying them. Stop wanting to be in their circle. It's such a bold starting point, and it immediately makes you pause and question your own ideas about what success even looks like.
And that brings us perfectly into our first big idea here, the trap of envy. Because before you can even think about building something positive, the text says you've got to clear out this really destructive mindset first. It's like you can't build on a toxic foundation. So, you might be wondering, what's the big deal with envy? Why the strong warning? Well, it's not just about some vague bad feeling. The text pulls back the curtain on what's going on inside these people. Their minds are constantly plotting, their words are all about stirring up trouble. That's the real price of their success, and honestly, who would want to live inside a mind like that?
And this is where it really gets interesting, because it's all about the long game. On the surface, things might look good for the wicked, but the text gives this stark contrast, this final outcome. It uses this incredible metaphor of their lamp being snuffed out. Think about that. Their path might seem bright for a little while, but ultimately it leads straight to darkness.
Okay, so if that's the path we're supposed to avoid, what's the alternative? What should we be doing? Well, this brings us to the absolute heart of this whole chapter, this idea of wisdom's lasting blueprint. It's a game plan for building a life that doesn't just crumble. And the writer gives us this amazing, super practical metaphor. They say, think of your life as a house. I love that. It's not something that just sort of happens to you. It has to be designed, it has to be built intentionally. So the big question is, what are you building it with? And boom, here's the three-step plan. It's laid out so clearly. It's a totally logical process, right? You start with the foundation, which is wisdom. Then you build the framework on top of that with understanding. And only then do you fill the rooms with all the good stuff, the treasures of knowledge.
But here's the thing. This isn't about just sitting in a library reading books. The text makes it super clear that wisdom is a source of a real, tangible power. It's what helps you win, what gives you strength. And check this out. It specifically mentions many advisors. So wisdom isn't about being some lone genius. It's about having the smarts to listen to others.
And just to make this idea even sweeter, literally, the writer uses this beautiful analogy of honey. Wisdom isn't just good for you, like taking your vitamins. It is good, it's sweet, it's something you should desire. And look at that promise. If you find it, you have a future, and your hope won't be cut off. That's a direct answer to that snuffed-out lamp we saw earlier. It's the complete opposite. All right, so you've built this amazing, strong house for yourself. Now what? Well, you don't just lock the door and sit inside alone, right? That takes us to section 3, justice in your community. The blueprint for your life has to include how you show up in the world.
And wow, this is not a gentle suggestion. This is an incredibly strong, active command. Rescue those being led away to death. It's intense. The writer is basically saying that if you're a person of wisdom, you have a responsibility, a duty to step in and protect the vulnerable. It's not optional.
And for anyone who's tempted to just, look the other way and pretend they didn't see anything, the text hits you with this sharp, rhetorical question. The message couldn't be clearer. You can't just plead ignorance. The one who weighs the heart knows better. Turning a blind eye is not an excuse.
The whole idea of impartial justice is laid out here in the starkest possible terms. It's presented as two paths, and that's it. On one side, if you twist the truth and call the guilty innocent, you get a public curse. On the other, if you stand for what's right and hold people accountable, you get a rich blessing. There's absolutely no middle ground here. And what a fascinating way to wrap up this section on justice. It's all about rejecting personal revenge. Think about that. True justice isn't about, I'll get you back for what you did to me. It's about rising above that, upholding a principle that's bigger than your own personal feelings, even when you've been wrong.
Okay, so to really hammer home how important it is to be actively building this life, the writer switches gears and tells us a little story. This brings us to section 4, the high cost of laziness.
This is what the opposite of that diligent construction looks like. So the storyteller sets the scene. It's a simple observation, really. He says, I was walking past the field of a sluggard. And notice that connection he makes right away. A sluggard, someone who's lazy, is also described as someone who has no sense. The two things are totally linked in his mind. And what does this lack of sense actually look like in the real world? The picture he paints is so clear. It's not one big catastrophic event. It's the result of small, everyday neglect that's just added up over time. Thorns everywhere, weeds covering the ground, a stone wall falling apart, all these visible signs of a lack of care.
And here's the punchline, the lesson he learns from just looking at that field. The ruin doesn't happen all at once. It comes from a little sleep, a little slumber, just a little bit of procrastination here and there. But the consequence? Poverty. And it doesn't creep in slowly. It comes on you like a thief. That's such a powerful warning about how slow neglect can lead to a very sudden crisis.
So, where does all of this leave us? We've seen the path of wisdom and we've seen the path of neglect. It's time to bring it all together in our final section, which is really, well, a tale of two endings.
And this slide just lays out the core difference perfectly. It's not that the righteous never have problems. Look at that, they fall 7 times. The key is their resilience. They get back up. The wicked, on the other hand, no matter how strong they might seem, are actually fragile. When disaster hits, they stumble and they don't get back up.
And here we are, at the final destination for each path. It brings everything full circle. The one who builds with wisdom finds this resilient, unshakable hope. And the other? The one living for the moment? Their lamp, as we heard before, is completely snuffed out. The end.
So we end right back where we started, with that central metaphor. This passage from Proverbs lays out this incredibly clear blueprint, contrasting the building materials of wisdom and justice with those of envy and neglect. So the final question it leaves us with is a really simple but powerful one. If your life is a house, what are you building with today?